Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man. So as you guys probably do know, we have an off day in the U.S. Chess Championship. And so I decided, man, let me go ahead and take it back a little bit. As you guys can see, I went back to 2006 when Wesley So played Eugene Torre. And the interesting thing about it is Wesley So in 2006 had just earned his international master title. So it is I am Wesley So, which I don't think I've ever done a game where he... No, you know what? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know I did one of 2004 with him and Fabiano, but I don't know. But anyway, that's crazy to think of him as an I am. Anyways, man, as you guys can see, I did change my chess legend down here to David Janowski. So some of you guys might have heard of him. I know when you're like working on different types of openings, his name does come up quite a bit. And this is kind of one of those old people. You're like, man, I don't know who that is, but it's named after him or whatever. You know, he was a very, very great player in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And as it says, he was able. So during his lifetime, there were 3 world champions. There was Wilhelm Steinitz, there was Emmanuel Lasker, and there was Jose Raul Capablanca. He managed to beat all 3 of them during his lifetime, and he did beat Alexander Alekhine, but this was right before he became world champion. So I mean, he kind of got a little bit of a score going on with all the leading masters of the day. For those of you who are familiar with end games or even like middle games, you guys might have heard the saying, the 2 Jans. Now, this guy right here, David Janowski, he was like a really, really huge double bishops player. Like, he pretty much always wanted the double bishops over everything. So, he basically, kind of got the like nickname of just being basically just married to the bishop pair. So sometimes the double bishops are referred to as the 2 Jans. But anyways, man, all my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking magkaibigan? It is about to be afternoon over there, so magandang hapon. Magandang umaga, because it is kind of still morning. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video. Masaya kong makita kang muli. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, but if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, homie. So we got the move E4. Best by test, Fisher said. We got the move E5. So this is like super classical way of playing the game. Basically white is expressing that they want some space and they want to control some stuff. And black is basically just saying the exact same thing. We do see bishop to C4. Now, this is the 3rd top move that you can play in this particular opening. It is a very, very sound move. It has a lot of like, typical, principles of chess in it. I mean, the bishop is, developed to a really great square. It does, kind of eye this square here, which is a very, very weak square to start the game. And I mean, sometimes, especially you guys that have played this from the black side, there are a lot of bishop takes F7 sacrifices literally everywhere. So you got to be kind of careful how you play. We do see the move knight to F6, and this is just a really great developing move. You are trying to get towards castling, and you are counterattacking this pawn on E4, which is currently undefended. We do see the move D3, and we do see the move C6 for black. Now, those of you who have played this as black, or even those of you that have played it as white, you guys understand that one of the major plans that black has is to try to push D5. Sometimes you can play knight to F6 and push D5 immediately. Sometimes you have to prepare it. It can be beneficial to prepare it for a couple different reasons. I'll get into one of those later. But we do see a knight going to F3, just counterattacking the pawn on E5. And, because it is undefended to start the game, so that is one of the drawbacks of playing E4, E5. It's a slight drawback. It's not really that bad. But as you guys can see now with the C6 being played, you do not have the ability to go knight to C6 to defend this pawn. So you either have to go all in with your attack or do like a passive move like D6. And Eugene just says, bro, I'm not going to be sitting here like playing passively. I'm going to go ahead and play actively. And so we do see the thematic D5 pawn push. We got bishop going back to B3. We got bishop to B4 with check. And this might look kind of strange because you're like, why would you check right here? Like the position isn't open over there like that. Like, I mean, you could just block it some kind of way. Well, some of the reason why you will just throw in a random check, it seems sometimes, is you do want your opponent to make unnatural moves. One of the moves that I'm talking about in this position is the move C3. The knight generally does want to go to C3 itself. So you don't particularly want to play the move b3. This is more useful when you have a fianchetto situation where placing the check would almost force, you know, the c3 movement. So that is what Eugene is trying to see if maybe Wesley So might do. But he does play, you know, bishop to d2 here. We got bishop taking d2, knight taking d2. We got knight b to d7, and we have castles by white. Now, one of the things that black really wishes that white would play is this move pawn takes d5, because then they can just capture back with the pawn, like so. Oh, no, it's black's turn. Okay, so let's say this, for example. No, hold on, go back. Okay, instead of castles, let's say, for example, you have something like this. Now, one of the other ideas that black had when they played the move c6 is kind of like a Sicilian Alapin type situation as white. You know, if, you know, your opponent captures, you want to be able to capture back with the pawn, and then you see that black has like the really nice pawn center, and white doesn't. So that is definitely one of the ideas as well. But like I said, we saw the castles. We saw castles by black. Rook goes to e1. So you see that white is basically just completely holding this tension, and it's not doing anything that black wants him to do. Rook goes to e8. We got the move d4, just counterattacking, basically saying to black, you know, you are having your pieces where they are and you're pushing for what you want. I'm pushing for the exact same thing. We do see pawn taking d4. We got pawn taking d5. Rook takes e1 with check. Nice little, you know, Zweifelsweg move. You know, let's check the king. We got queen taking e1, and then we actually have the novelty of the game, which is very interesting. At the time in 2006, this was the first time that knight takes d5 was actually played, and we have actually reached a point in the game. There is a really, really strong move that white can play in this position. If you want to pause the video and try to guess that move, go ahead and do so. Okay, so I actually think a lot of you guys are going to get this move. It's kind of like, I mean, one of the somewhat, I guess, obvious moves that you can play in the position. I mean, you see that, you know, black at the moment is up a pawn, and you can just recapture that pawn, knight takes d4. But, I mean, maybe, you know, there might have been kind of some thoughts like, hey, man, maybe it's like some trappy situations going on, you know? It's interesting because, like I said, the move is actually, the move that I'm looking for, the best possible move is knight takes d4. But the interesting thing was Wesley So did not play that in the game. Now, he didn't play like a blunder or anything bad. He just picked an alternate move. And there are some subtle differences between the two. Like I said, he did take bishop takes d5, which has some ideas behind it. I'll get into that in a minute. But looking at the knight takes d4, what I really liked about this this knight takes d4 is the really aggressive position that white is able to build up. It's not like it's just completely more winning than what Wesley So chose, but, you know, it's pretty dominant looking from my perspective. You would probably see knight 7 to f6 because, you know, you got to get your bishop out at some point. We got the queen coming up to e5. Really, really dominant central square. We got the bishop going to g4, which is one of the bishop's options. And then we would probably see rook to e1. And you can see, you know, that, you know, white definitely has their pieces on good squares. You know, they can always play c3 at some point just to kind of like negate whatever this knight is going to be trying to do over here. And you also have some, you know, some h3 situations like, you know, pushing this bishop somewhere. So you can see that it's a really aggressive position for white to have. It's not like it's completely winning, but it's really nice. But like I said, after we saw knight takes d5, we do see bishop taking d5. And Wesley So possibly might have been thinking here, hey, I'm going to kind of give black a little bit of damage. I'm going to double their pawns, which, okay, it's going to end up being one pawn after you see this right here. So you're taking knight takes d4 anyway. But, I mean, as a lot of you guys know, out there, like, it's understood generally in chess that the isolated queen's pawn is not really that bad of a situation. And isolated pawns within themselves are not generally like the worst things ever. You really want to stay away from those isolated double pawns because they can be very hard to liberate. But this is actually not too bad. We do see knight going to f6. We got the queen going up to e3. The queen went to b6, and then we do see rook to e1. So you see that we kind of have a somewhat of a similar position. It just doesn't seem, you know, quite as dominating as the one we saw a second ago. And also, white has given up a bishop for a knight, you know, and you're thinking about that going in towards the endgame. Now, you are threatening back rank mate, so you can't just be like, hey, man, I'm going to win a pawn, because you're not going to win a pawn because you're just going to lose completely after this. And then what did you just do? You got a pawn, though. I mean, you know, you got the pawn. But anyways, after we see rook to e1, we do see bishop to d7, and that just cancels out all that back rank stuff. We're good to go. So now we do have to protect that pawn. We got knight 2 to b3. We got rook going over to c8, and then we actually see the move queen to d2, which is just a good way to just kind of hold everything together. What was actually super duper solid was just the move c3, just making sure that everything is solid up here. And then also a kind of a deeper thing you're thinking about is the fact that this pawn is holding, trying to, you know, prevent this d pawn from becoming dynamic. That's one of the things you want to do when you are playing against an isolated or a backward pawn, to try to make sure that it does not become dynamic and it just starts to move. You want to try to hold it up. But like I said, we did see queen to d2. We got the queen going back to c7. We got the move f3. Very logical move. You know, this knight is probably thinking of trying to better itself some kind of way, but as of right now, it can't, and it's not going to go to h5. We do see the move b6. We got the rook. The rook lift for the win. No, I'm playing the rook. I mean, rook lifts are nice, but it's like, I mean, you're not really, you know, kind of going anywhere with this rook. It can't swing over here, put any pressure, so it is what it is. We got the queen going over to d6. We got queen over to f2. We got the move a5. And I actually honestly feel, now I haven't talked to Wesley So about this. You know, it's been a minute since we talked. But I think that in this position, he's an IM. He's going against GM, you know, of course, the legend of the Philippines, right? And I think he gets a little bit fearful in this exact position. And he sees these pawns rolling on the queen side. And he's like, man, I don't really like how that looks. Like, you know, let me go ahead and just try to get into a trade. I mean, if you can get into a trade, you know, with some of the issues that black has, maybe you can just kind of hold it or go into a repetition. And I think that's exactly what Wesley So tries to do here because of that stuff. We do see queen going back to f8. The queen goes down to f1. We see the queen going back to d6. We got queen to g3. Got queen back to f8. We got queen to e1, queen to d6, and then the queen goes back to g3, and we have a draw by threefold repetition. Neither player wanted to give an inch. So it's not necessarily that draws just, you know, mean that the players just didn't feel like playing anymore. Sometimes you get in positions where your position is so solid and it's so strong, and the position that you want your pieces on is so beneficial that you do not want to give that, and that ends up being a draw. So that is that game. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Maraming salamat aking makaibigan. Posa na nunod ng aking mga video. Mabuting pagbati, ingat lagi to you guys, and I will see you guys next time.